Hey, welcome in everyone. Welcome to Adobe Photoshop 2020 Lesson 1. This is our first project out of the gates, and it's going to be a little bit of an interesting one. I'm curious to see what we can come up with here. What we're going to end up doing is we're going to create portraits of ourselves in the style here. This is in the style of Andrea Costantini. Costantini, there it is. But anyway, he creates these portraits, obviously very Photoshop heavy. And the idea here is just what's in your head. Here's a couple different examples. But what we're going to end up doing is we're going to take photos of ourselves, and then we are going to use our Photoshop skills to insert objects that mean something to us, that kind of make up who we are. Okay, so follow along with me here, and let's get to it. So I'm going to get rid of that. The first thing we need to do is we need to open up Adobe Photoshop. So on my computer here, I have Photoshop 2021. On your machines, you have 2020. It runs basically the same way. So follow along with me. It might look a little bit different here and there, but for the most part, it's all the same. Okay. Now, the first thing that you should have done is in Google Classroom, you're going to download the background images and the cloud images. Additionally, you want to take a photo of yourself. I'll bring in mine here in just a second, but what we're going to do is we're going to start with our open option here. So we're going to hit open, and we're going to open up our background that we downloaded. Okay. Always good to start with our background. So there we go. I'm going to move my video screen up here. That looks a little bit better. So this is our background that we're going to be using. And the first thing we need to do is we need to bring in that photo of ourselves. Okay. Now, the easiest way to do this is if we just go to File, and we're going to hit Place Embedded. And what that does is that will allow us to pick a file that's on our computer, and it will just bring it into this same Photoshop document. So Place Embedded, and I'm going to find that photo of me, and there it is. Okay, so there's me standing in my living room, and we're going to give it the Photoshop treatment. Okay, so Photoshop's incredible. If you guys were with me and we've just done Pixlr up to this point, Photoshop's going to blow your mind, I promise. So the first thing we're going to do is we are going to go over here to the left-hand side. This is our toolbar, okay? And we are going to choose, if you right-click on that fourth option there, we're going to go to our quick selection tool, okay? Now on our quick selection tool, we have this option up here that we're going to say select subject, okay? Now in most cases, what we can do is we can just use that quick selection tool and just click and drag, and you can select things, and you can see it has the little dotted, the marching ants, as we like to call it, the marching ants line around what your selection is, okay? Now, Photoshop's amazing in that you can just click the select subject button up here, and it will do the best it can to select our subject, okay? It does a really good job at deciding what's actually people, what's the focus of your photo, and we're gonna just take a look at our marching ants line, and honestly, it did pretty good. Now, real quick, I'm gonna hold down my Alt key, and I'm gonna spin my mouse wheel so I can zoom in. And now in your quick selection tool, as I showed you before, if you click and drag, you can paint in selections for your quick selection. Now, if you hold down the Alt key, in most cases in Photoshop, holding down your Alt key does the opposite of the tool that you're currently on. So if we hold down our Alt key, what we can do is we can paint out things from our selection, okay? And that's what I'm going to use right now, okay? I'm going to paint out this weird little crop on my chin. There we go. Give me a little bit less of a double chin, I guess. And then again, I'm going to hold down my Alt key and spin my wheel out to zoom out. There we go. So pretty good selection on me there. What I want to do now is I want to mask this. Okay. Now, additionally, eventually we're going to get to the point where we're going to be taking out a little portion of our head here, and you can do that now. Actually, that would probably make a whole lot of sense. So I'm going to select everything except for just like the top of my head. That looks good. Okay. And make sure some of these marching ants, you might have to paint them out. Again, hold down that Alt key while you're painting things to get rid of them. There we go. So great selection at this point. What I'm going to do is I am going to hit my mask button, which is right down here. It's the little square with the circle taken out of it. What that's going to do is I'm going to click that, and it gets rid of everything that's not selected. Okay? So now what I can do is I can go up to my little arrows button up here. That's my move tool, and I can kind of move my figure around. So I'm going to land them right about there. Okay, so there we go. Step one. That was honestly like one of the hardest steps of this whole project. Okay, now as we saw before, if we're looking at Andrea's his examples here, you see that he loves to use clouds as a little transition. A lot of clouds in there. So that's why I also gave you the clouds to download as well. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to place embedded. We're going to find those clouds. There they are. Okay, beautiful. And then what you can do is, while it's selected, you can just Control C, Control V, Control C, Control V. There we go. I had to click off of it first. And then you can make multiple layers. And you can see your layers are down here. So now we have our background, we have the profile picture, and we have two sets of clouds. Okay, and you can just move those clouds around. And we'll move them around as we go along. Okay. So the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to start placing pieces into our portrait. Okay, things that make up who we are. Now this may take a little bit of introspection at this point. You might have to do some searching. What interests you? What makes you tick? So again, I'm going to go place embedded, and I downloaded a couple different files here. I have obviously the go-to, the Diet Peach Tea Snapple. Okay. Now, obviously, that thing's humongous. This is not what I'm wanting to put, or at least keep it this size. Okay. So there we go. There's my Peach Tea Snapple. I'm just going to hit enter to kind of move off of it. And what I need to do first is I need to mask the background. I don't want this white background. Okay. So again, I'm going to go to my quick selection tool. I'm going to hit select subject. I'm going to just paint in the top of that cap. Looks pretty good. I'm going to hit my mask button down here, and there is my Snapple. Perfect. All right, now I need to resize it. Okay, so to do that, we have a couple different ways that we can handle this. Okay, the first one, if you go to the edit menu here, and we go down to free transform. Okay, free transform gives you options so that you can kind of resize it. Also, if you hover just above the corner there, you see the arrows going side to side. You can also rotate your object. So I'm going to resize it down, and I'm going to rotate it around. And I think that looks good. That'll work for now. Okay? Perfect. There's step one. I'm going to grab another thing real quick, and we're going to do the same thing a couple different times. So I'm going to grab a camera. There we go. Same thing, same song, second verse. Selection tool, select subject. Make sure your marching ants are where you want them. It looks pretty good. I'm going to hit that mask tool again. Oops. I want my move tool. You end up selecting something that you don't mean to select. You can hit Control D, which is deselect. So it will take you back before your selection. So there we go. I got my camera. I'm going to Control T, resize it, rotate it a bunch, move it into position. And there we go. Okay. Now, if you want to, you can move these clouds out of the way for now. You can also, down here on the menu, you see this little eyeball next to each of the layers. If you click the eyeball, if you poke it in the eye, then that object disappears. Okay, and you can bring it back later. So I'm going to hide the clouds at this point just because we're going to bring them back in a little bit. Okay, on to number 3, place embedded. I'm going to go with music. My representation of music. I am going to, again, quick select tool, select subject. Oh, it missed that middle bar there, okay? And now it has that black bar. So I want to hit Alt and paint out that gray bar there. I think that looks pretty good. So again, mask, move tool. I can move it around, Control T to resize it. And there we go. And I'm just getting them here now. We can move them all around later on, okay? So there we go. I'm going to do one more here. I'm going to do a little more difficult one so you can kind of see what I'm doing here. I'm going to pick a picture of my kids. Here's a picture of my kids. Once again, I am going to go to the quick selection tool, select subject. This is a picture we took at Christmas. They were doing Santa pictures, but only if you had a pet. So we made balloon animals. It was kind of fun. Okay, so we're looking at this. Marching ants, again, it did a really good job here. I don't know quite what it's seeing up here. So again, I'm going to hold down Alt and paint things out. And then I'm going to paint in the top of our little balloon dog there. And then I'm going to try and paint out this little area above my son's head, but below the animal. I think that's pretty good. Now you can also zoom in to take a look and see how good you did. And you can get as exact as you need to get. Again, I think that's about as good as it needs to be. Okay. Once you have your selection right, we are hitting that mask button. Voila. Control T, resize, move around. And we'll probably do something fun with that a little bit later. Good enough for now. All right, now I want to show you one other thing real quick. Another way that you can do this, because Photoshop's kind of neat. So I'm going to bring in a Google tab here. And let's say, for example, I wanted a picture of a baseball, okay? I'm going to type in baseball into Google. I'm going to go to images. A lot of different baseballs. I'm just going to pick one at random. I like that baseball right there, okay? So what I can do is I can copy, right-click it, copy, go to Photoshop, and Control V to paste it in. There we go. So you don't even have to save images. You can bring them in, just copy paste them from Google. And there we go. So same thing, I'm going to quick select subject. And I think that looks pretty good. There we go. I got a baseball. And I'm actually going to move that. I don't like the harsh edge on the bottom of that. What I can do is I'm on that object there. There's a couple different things you can do with this, but real quick, I'm just going to go to my erase tool right over here. And that's fine. I'm just going to hit OK. And then what I'm going to do is just make it a little bit less of a harsh edge. There we go. And back to my move tool, move it in. There we go. Yeah, I cut off my daughter's arm. Not too worried about it. Control T, so I can shift it into position. There we go. Enter, move stuff around. All right. So there we go. So we have our objects that we want. I'm going to bring back in my clouds. Now over here, this is my layer menu. Okay. The further up things are in that layer menu, the get out of there, email. The higher they're going to be in the stacked image. Okay. So for example, the baseball. Let's say I want the baseball to go a little further back. Okay. This one's the baseball. If I just click and drag it, I can go ahead and I can actually put it behind that camera. You see how it kind of jumped out of the way there? So then I can scoot it around. I'm going to resize it. There we go. Okay. And same thing for the clouds. So the clouds, I want them on top. So I'm going to take them to the top of my layer. And again, I can Control T so I can move them around. You just need to click off of them or hit Enter to move forward. And I can, I'm going to leave that there. Okay. All right, one other thing. If you want to recolor things, okay? Let's say, for example, my picture of me. I want myself to be a little bit darker, okay? I want to take some of the color out of that, okay? What I need to do is I just need to make a selection, okay? And what's really neat about Photoshop is you can actually click over here on your layer and it will select everything that's in that layer. Control, click on the mask, and then adjustments, hue, saturation, and I can make changes to just my picture. So I'm going to take saturation down just to make it a little bit more moody. And there we go. And you can do the same thing with any of your other objects. Again, I'm going to do it just one more time just so you can kind of see what I did. You're going to hold down Control, click the mask of your layer over here. Make sure that that layer is selected. Okay. Adjustments, hue, saturation, and you can change your selection's color. There we go. I'm going to make that a little bit less bright. I'm going to do the same thing with my Snapple. I'm going to do it one more time just so you can see it. I'm going to click the layer. I'm going to hold down Control. I'm going to click the mask, which is that black and white image. You can see that it selected just the Snapple there. I'm going to go to Adjustments, Hue, Saturation, and I'm going to take down the color of that too. All right. So there you go. That's pretty much what we're going to do. What I'm looking for is I want at least 8 objects. Okay. I want a background. I want a picture of you. And I want at least 8 objects that represent you and kind of what's in your head. Okay. When we're all done with everything, okay, we're going to go File, Save As. I'm going to save on my computer. I don't even know if you guys are going to get that option. File name, I'm going to save it as Kern Portrait. Save as type. Okay, save as type is important. If you're still working on things, you want to save it as a PSD document, okay, or a Photoshop document. That allows you to open it back up, keep making changes to it. When you are completely done, what I want you to do though is I want you to save it as either a JPEG or a PNG. In this case, I'm going to save mine as a PNG. Okay. I'm going to go to my desktop. I'm going to hit save. I'm going to say large file size. Okay. And there we go. And that's my image. And that's what I'm going to turn in. Okay. So have some fun with it. Make some interesting choices. Tell me a little bit about yourself through this art. But this is Photoshop. Welcome to it. And we plan on having a lot of fun moving forward. So good luck. Let me know if you have any questions. And you got this.